It's the first time in Israel's history that two elections are happening in a very short span of time. What's going on?
The last election was held in early April. Prime Minister Netanyahu was given the opportunity to try and form a new government. And rather than give his political opponent an opportunity to form a government, Netanyahu instead made the very controversial and unpopular decision to have a second election.
What does that say that Netanyahu was not able to form that coalition back in April?
Netanyahu's failure to form a government back in April demonstrated is that he's become a very polarizing figure. The corruption cases that have dogged him in recent years have dented his popular support, and the very polarizing style, very populist style of politics that he's adopted has made him a very divisive and polarized figure in Israeli politics today.
Who is running against him? What do the parties look like?
His main challenger is Benny Gantz, who is a former military chief of staff and who now heads the Blue and White Party. Avigdor Lieberman may be a contender, but one of the things that Netanyahu has done so successfully is defang his potential rivals. Besides Benny Gantz, there really isn't anybody in the near term who's in a position to challenge Netanyahu. Benny Gantz projects an image of being reliable, somewhat dull. He lacks Netanyahu's charisma, but he also conveys a sense of decency. Israelis aren't necessarily excited about the prospect of Benny Gantz's premiership, but it might be at least a change of style.
Netanyahu is facing hearings in October for the corruption indictments. He's denied sort of any wrongdoing. How do they impact how Israelis see him as a leader?
Many Israelis, even the majority of Israelis, do believe these allegations and do believe that they are severe, and it strengthens their desire to get rid of him because he's increasingly seen as a threat to Israeli democracy. The other thing, of course, I think that these corruption allegations have done is make Netanyahu very, very desperate right now. This is a man who's not only fighting for his political survival, he is also fighting for his very freedom.
So I guess to that point, why has Netanyahu's tenure been so durable?
For the most part, Israelis today feel more secure under Netanyahu than they have under his predecessors. Insecurity, more than anything else, is what Israelis seek. He also has been able to portray himself as Israel's indispensable statesman. He uses his meetings with world leaders, particularly his relationship with President Trump, to great effect.
The issue of Iran didn't necessarily feel like it came up so prominently in the election in April. How does Iran play into this election?
Iran is perceived by Israelis to be an existential threat, to be Israel's greatest enemy today. And so certainly concerns about Iran and its behavior and Iranian proxies like Hezbollah factor into Israelis' concerns about security. That helps Netanyahu. He also, however, faces a real risk today with regards to Iran, which is the possibility of a meeting between President Trump and Iranian President Rouhani. If Trump, Bibi's best friend, is willing to meet with the Iranian president, not only is that a major strategic concern for Israel, it's a major political disaster for Netanyahu because it shows that essentially he's failed in his chief foreign policy strategy.
Netanyahu has repeatedly promised the annexation of Israeli settlements in the West Bank. Where does this stand, and who does this bring in?
Annexation of parts of the West Bank has long been a demand of the Israeli right. Netanyahu has previously resisted those calls. He's now on board, and the fact that he's come on board so late in the game and just a few days before the last election in April really indicates to me, and I think to most people, that this is really a political strategy. If this annexation goes ahead, not only will it destroy any prospect of Israeli-Palestinian peace, but it could also lead to a kind of chain reaction which could result in the collapse of the Palestinian Authority and in a real escalation of Israeli-Palestinian violence in the West Bank.
How do relations with Palestinians currently stand in this election? Where does that come in?
Remarkably, it's actually not a big issue for Israelis, or at least for Israeli Jews. It really wasn't a major issue in the April election, and it hasn't been a major issue in this election either. But I think most Israelis are more concerned about the future of Israeli democracy. They're concerned about Netanyahu's personal corruption. They're concerned about the role of the ultra-Orthodox and the impact the ultra-Orthodox have in Israeli life. All of these issues, and the Palestinian issue, and certainly the issue of peace with the Palestinians, is really much lower down on their agenda. Whether it should be or not is a different question.
Hey, NBC News viewers, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here, and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.